Breaking news today.
Please subscribe and then check notification box to get all breaking news alerts.
When someone loses a family member, the only decent thing to do is offer your help, if such a thing is possible. Traditionally, food is brought to the family's home, and in the case of high-profile events, like mass shootings, sometimes large businesses like airlines or casket companies will offer their services for free to try and relieve some of the worry associated with the death. Law enforcement and local government also commonly offer grief counseling or even get victims' families in touch with one another after questioning so that those affected can mourn with others who understand their pain. Because law enforcement has to interview witnesses and family members of victims, it often feels like old wounds being opened, the idea that they would violate the trust given to them by exploiting victims or their families, but that's just what the FBI is suspected of doing. According to True Pundit, the FBI passed along the personal information of Las Vegas shooting victims and their families to a law firm looking to make a buck off of the victims, their families, and any businesses that could possibly be held responsible. The story, which originated at Wayne Allen Root, tells of a law enforcement agency gone amok, looking out for their own gain over the health and well-being of victims. The FBI is now in the business of chasing ambulances, so to speak, hooking crime victims up with law firms instead of solving the crime, according to disturbing revelations from survivors and surviving family members of the Las Vegas Mandalay Bay massacre. The details that follow are from longtime Vegas mainstay Wayne Allen Root. I am sad to bring you a story of what certainly appears to be shocking government abuse, corruption, scandal and violation of trust. I'm sad because it involves a federal government institution I've trusted my entire life, the FBI. It's a national scandal that should leave every American shocked and shaken. Is the FBI now a telemarketing firm shilling for class action lawsuits at private law firms? If so, who is getting the kickbacks for these multi-million-dollar settlements and awards? J.P. Hine is a longtime friend. I trust him with my life. He is a former 20-year veteran of a Southern California law enforcement agency and team leader for a SWAT team. After retiring, JP spent almost 20 years as investment manager for large institutional clients. JP is a man who defines trust. Sadly, JP lost his nephew-in-law at the Las Vegas mass shooting last month. His nephew was shot in the torso, standing next to his wife. That left JP's niece a widow with 3 children and no income. JP's niece spent a lot of time meeting with FBI agents as a witness and victim. That's what makes this story so shocking and outrageous. Is it possible that our FBI uses the trust and bond formed with victims of violent crime and even mass murder, to sign these victims up as clients at private law firms? Here's the story. JP's niece was contacted by a FBI victims specialist a week after the Vegas tragedy at the worst and most fragile moment of her life. The FBI victim specialist, who clearly identified herself as an employee of the FBI, said her goal was to help victims like JP's niece receive the money she needs and deserves. She asked the grieving widow to sign a form and send it back to get the process started quickly. The form sent by an employee of the trusted FBI was a contract to join a class action lawsuit against MGM in Mandalay Bay. Worst of all, it was a contract with 2 private law firms in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. There is no mistake, or miscommunication, or he said, she said here. I've seen the contract sent by the FBI to this widow. The FBI, or certainly this FBI employee, is clearly soliciting clients, the victims of the worst mass murder in U.S. history, for a private law firm. J.P. Hine called the LA office of the FBI, and it was confirmed that employees of the FBI are in fact soliciting clients of the Vegas mass murder to these private law firms. The FBI agent on duty saw nothing wrong with this. He strongly suggested JP have his niece speak only to the FBI victim specialist. I called a man I'd consider an authority on the FBI. James Kellstrom is the former assistant FBI director. He was clearly rattled by these revelations. I have never heard of such an arrangement. It is one thing to comfort victims and to advise them of support that is in the public domain. It is not proper for the FBI to direct victims to for-profit law firms. I hope that this is a situation brought about by staff that is not trained properly. In any case, the FBI should immediately conduct an investigation and correct this situation. There's a fine line between interests being aligned and just pushing an emotionally fragile person for your own personal gain. Unfortunately, the FBI seems to have crossed that line in the case of the Las Vegas shooting. Every person affected by that horrible tragedy deserves our utmost concern and respect. For the law enforcement that those people trusted to not have the respect for their privacy that an online retailer would have, is an egregious invasion, and one that should be prosecuted. Perhaps the agents in charge of this information dump can use the names of those law firms themselves, to fend off the big trouble that should be coming their way. Share if you think this kind of offense is unacceptable on the part of the FBI. Follow us on Facebook at Freedom Daily.